And the Price of Freedom we're talking about, part of our history we don't hear about too often. Willie Edwards was drafted in 1943. At that time, the military was segregated. It wasn't until after World War II, July 26, 1948, the President Truman issued the executive order abolishing segregation in the military. Mr. Edwards served in the Navy before that time and after, and has a unique perspective on what happened. Willie Mack Edwards grew up in Alabama.
Right on the limestone Madison County line.
He had a big family. They all worked on the family farm.
Going from pillar to post down through there till I was 17. Then I came here.
You moved here to Chattanooga when you were 17?
Right.
What'd you move here for?
Well, got tired of that farm.
2 years later, he got his draft notice.
I was kind of glad to get it because I had got laid off from a job at the wrecking company. And then by me being 1A, I couldn't get no job, no good job, because they knew I was supposed to be drafted at any time.
Mr. Edwards says he wanted to go to the Army like his brother, but they told him they needed people for the Navy.
Why you don't want to go to the Navy? I said, I can't drink all that water. so he hit the Navy on my paper and say, you're in the Navy.
They sent him to Florida. He spent his time cooking for officers.
The blacks, just about all blacks, that's what they was in officers' cooks. They would have to make up the officers' bed, shine the shoes. It was just a valet. That's what they were, just a valet for the officers. During World War II, African-American sailors served primarily in non-combat roles. I got transferred from Jacksonville to Pensacola. And my meal ticket, I went to eat. Went to the diner, and they put me on the back last seat in the dining car and put a black oilcloth between me and the rest of the people. That's why I had to eat.
Mr. Edwards remembers clearly how difficult those times were.
I didn't like that too hard. I didn't think too much of that. But it really didn't dawn on me too much because that's what I had been used to. But you know, when you think of it, because there's a lot of incidents that I ran in much worse than that. Much worse than that.
Mr. Edwards says during the war, he saw that things were starting to change in the Navy.
I think of it now more so than I did then because I've been raised in the South and I wasn't used to nothing but that.
Segregation in the military ended in 1948, but that didn't happen for the entire country for another 18 years. Mr. Edwards came home after World War II, but was called back during the Korean War. He came back to Chattanooga in 1952, then was in the reserves for 27 more years. He has a wall in his home with military photos and awards. I asked him what he thinks about when he looks at this wall.
I'm thankful. I'm thankful.
Mr. Edwards came home and raised a family. In fact, one of his daughters is the person who contacted us about her father's story. He worked 2 jobs to support his family for years. He worked at DuPont for 33 years and was part of the push for integration there.